On today's installment of Floyd's Mayhem Garage, we are working on my old man's truck. So this, I guess, in these years, these body styles run from 99 to 07, if I read that properly. This one's an 05. These have an issue with the door hinges, and they start to fall off, I guess, or get bent, whatever, but the door hinges are welded on, and they tend to bend and whatnot. So this one is bending as well. We have a real tight gap up here. In fact, it's caught the fender a couple times, and bigger gap at the bottom, and the whole door is now sitting crooked, which is giving you a gap up at the top, and your gap here is much bigger and tightens down up at the bottom. So my dad took this to a body shop. He wanted to get a quote of what it would take to fix this, and I think it was either quoted somewhere in the ballpark of $1,500 or $1,800. The proper way to fix this is they actually remove the whole dash, because they're plug welded from the inside, and then they replace the hinges and repaint everything and all that. So that was the proper way to do it. My dad asked me if I could redneck it, if you will. We're just going to hammer it back into place, get it lined up back with the body, and we'll get it welded from the outside and then repaint it, and should fix the door to at least open and close properly without issue. And so you can see in here where the door hinge is starting to separate and causing the alignment issues of the whole door. Okay, so at this point, with having the bolt here, which is basically the retainer that holds the top of this guy down, so undoing that keeps this separate from the door. This will end up remaining. Same thing down here. Undo the door, which is your stop, and at this point the whole door can just lift off of these pins. So get this, we got this hooked up like so. So now we are separate and up and off of the pins. Okay, so now that this is off, I'm going to try to get this kind of door swung out and kind of out of the way. And so instead of having the paint on paint, I'm going to try to tape the edge to try to reduce that. Even though the tape is partially messed, or the paint's partially messed up already from it opening up so far so many times, we'll try to reduce the damage. So I know from everything I've read, there's actually tools to get these pins out. So these pins I'll end up just leaving. Yeah. And these are staying here. I'll just have to work around this. So the idea now is to get this, I don't know if I need to heat anything up or if we can just use brute force to get this pushed back to where it needs to go. And then I'll get all this cleaned up down to bare metal, and then I'll actually weld around this.
Nice.
So
seems easy enough.
Yeah, even the body shop told us the way they fix these, because this is such a common problem on these. They'll pull the dash out, they put a new hinge on it, they plug weld it from the backside the way the factory did, and then they will also, they tack it on the outside. So instead of tack it, I'm going to actually more or less weld the whole thing, yeah.
Yeah.
So with cleaning it up, the whole idea is just get down to metal. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but at least this way, because I know I'm not the best welder, but you can get at least a pretty decent weld this way. But getting it pretty much as clean as you can down to bare metal without overdoing it. So now I'll try to beat this straight without hitting the door, and see if we can get this thing back to where it needs to be. Ooh, not need that. I need a bigger hammer. Okay, so as well, need a bigger hammer, but ground just a groove into this. So that way, when I sit on here, it'll have a tendency to stay a little bit better in place. And hopefully I can swing a little harder and not miss. Okay, so now that we got this closed up and kind of back to where it looks like it should be good, I think we're going to set the door back on and test fit it, kind of get an idea of how it's looking, see if we need to make any sort of adjustments before we actually do the final weld on it and paint it.
All right.
Well, gaps look better.
Yeah, the front gap looks better, especially right here, when you couldn't even put a piece of paper between there.
Yeah.
Hard to tell with the tape, but it does appear to be better.
So, and there's that bolt holding the fender, and I know we pushed that out so we get the door open before, so that's out too far right now. So that'll be an easy enough adjustment once we're...
Yeah.
Yeah, even with tape, that looks better, for sure.
Cool.
This closes better. This is tighter. This is really tight, actually. It's touching now.
Yeah, before you said there was like air.
It had a really bad air noise, too. Yeah. Because the way that top hinge was bent out, it bent the door out this way. So none of this sealed properly. That's all a really tight seal now. This gap looks good. It's not that massive gap anymore. It's straighter.
It's a little tighter on the bottom still.
I don't think it's perfect, but it's definitely way better than it was before.
Cool.
I think it'll be good enough for my dad to be happy with.
Yeah. Cool. Let's weld her up.
I think so. Now that I got this welded up and it's back where it needs to be, you don't want to leave it in bare metal. It'll just rust and make the problem worse, you know, not too far down the road. So I've got it primed right now, and then as well, I went ahead and got the paint code for this. Took it down to my local Napa. This paint, I forget exactly what the paint code was, but it's Cashmere Metallics, the code. So I had a rattle can of that mixed up. This paint code was able to mix it up in just a single stage. So normally this would be a base coat, clear coat. So I'm just going to cover it in a single stage. It won't be an exact match, but it'll be pretty close to where being inside the door jamb, you'll pretty much never notice. So once this primer dries, I can get a coat of paint on it and put it back together. And of course, I guess, you know, partially explain it. You want to begin with a lighter coat, just get it covered. And you don't need to get full coverage on it. And I'll end up doing multiple coats. I bet that it was, instead of painting black or something, that's totally worth it. There we go. Cool. Okay.
Cool.
I'm gonna put this one in. Gotta do that for the door to close. Alright. So, got the door hinge straightened and welded and painted. And so now that we've done that, the door actually sits pretty good. It's still not perfect, which is never what this project was supposed to be about. This was just to make the door line up, seal, and open and close properly. So it seals nicely now. And it goes back. The door gaps, we are slightly bigger at the top, but from what we were to the bottom, it's so much better. And the same with the front here. Because the front was hitting the fender so much, there's a decent amount of damage on the fender, but my dad's not worried about that. He just wants it to open and close. So the gap there is pretty good and opens and closes without issue. And I got it painted and matched, and then that front edge welded up, so that will not go anywhere. So this whole video and project on this is to kind of give you guys an idea. If you don't necessarily have the money to have it professionally done at a body shop, but you want your vehicle to be functional and work, this is kind of the type of project and stuff you can do. Materials wise on this, I didn't really use a whole lot. The most important thing was my welder. So you gotta have a good welder. You can even do all this work yourself, and then if you have a friend, or even pay someone to just weld it up for you. As far as materials go, I think really the only thing I had was primer and paint. Everything else I had, which was hammers and wire wheel on a drill.